Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are reading from Canto 3 at the moment, part 2 of Canto 3, 2 avatars, and we're going to begin chapter 30, Material Life's Painful Consequences. Mukham karoti vachalam kripatamham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramanandamatam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hari Om Tat Sat. Narayanam Namaskrityam Namascha Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayar Udhirayat Nashcha Prayasu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Nashtiki. Material Life's Painful Consequences, Chapter 30. Kapila describes how, controlled by time, the conditioned soul falls into illusion and degrades himself to hell. As promised, Kapila returned to the mansion shortly after sunrise. Respectfully touching Devahuti's feet, he took his seat on the veranda. What do you wish to discuss today, mother? My dear son, you spoke about time last night. Please explain more about this and how, under its influence, the living beings suffer continuous miseries. Kapila drew his mother's attention to the puffy clouds scudding across the morning sky like so many giant pieces of cotton wool. As these clouds have no idea how the wind carries them through the heavens, materialistic persons cannot perceive time's influence. So it's a beautiful analogy given. I'll repeat that as the clouds have no idea how the wind carries them through the heavens, materialistic persons cannot perceive time's influence. Whatever they painstakingly create for their happiness is destroyed in due course of time by Krishna in his form as time. When their material plans are thus frustrated, they simply lament. The misguided materialist forgets that powerful time will annihilate even his body as well as everything connected to his bodily pleasure. So it's such an eye-opener all the time. If we remember that time is Krishna and everything is going to be destroyed, including the body in which we are being carried and all the pleasure connected to this body. Such as his house, land and wealth, in ignorance he thinks all these worldly assets are permanent. In whatever species of life he takes birth, the deluded living entity becomes attached and thinks he is happy. Even in the most degraded situation, he does not want to die, taking delight in his hellish enjoyment. Devahuti looked incredulous. Surely those in hellish conditions of life would welcome death. Then she recalled a story Kardam had told her. Once Indra was cursed to become a hog. Hog is a pig, as you know. After living in that body for some time, Brahma approached him and asked him to return to the heavens in his celestial form. Indra was reluctant, saying that he was happy where he was with his hog wife and should be so foolish. Verses 6 to 9, earlier we discussed verses 1 to 5, now verses 6 to 9. Kapila said conditioned souls are satisfied with their material situation because of their deep-rooted attachment to body, wife, children, home, wealth and friends. So how come everybody's happy in their own situation? Because of the deep-rooted attachment to these things, which is matter, isn't it? Beginning from their own body to their wife, their children, the home, the wealth, the friends, thinking these to be the source of their happiness. They believe they are successful even though they always burn with anxiety due to constant tribulation. The deluded souls continue to hope against hope that their family, society, and possessions will make them happy. They are ready to commit all kinds of sin in order to maintain them. Seduced by the spell of the opposite sex, the bewildered living being enjoys intimate talks and embraces in solitary places. He is further captivated by enchanting speech of his small children. He thus continues in family life which is filled with deceit and politics. He gives pain to others to secure his own sense gratification, continuously suffering the reactions to his sins. He considers himself happy if he can simply mitigate his misery. Verses 10 to 12 now. He procures wealth by nefarious means, giving most of it to his family members and consuming only a small portion himself, eventually going to hell for his sinful acts. When he loses his means of income, he tries repeatedly to find another way to earn money. After all his attempts are baffled, powerless to control his greed, he resorts to begging and borrowing from others. Unable to support his family, the wretched fellow thinks always of his failure and deeply grieves. So this is, in a nutshell, the life of a human being described in the verses 10 to 12 of chapter 30 of the third canto. Verses 13 to 15, he is bereft of wealth. He is bereft of wealth. His wife and relatives disrespect and neglect him in the same way that miserly farmers disregard their old and worn out oxen. So another analogy given, that when a person, he is no longer able to do things for his family, how the family is neglecting him like a worn out oxen of a farmer. Although he is maintained by those who once depended on him, he does not become disgusted with his family life. Deformed by old age, he waits for death. He lives at home like a pet dog, eating whatever is negligently given to him. Afflicted with indigestions and other illnesses, he becomes an invalid, incapable of work. So that's why it's so important that we should remember our foremost duty in this life, to serve Lord Shri Krishna, listen to the holy name, glorify the holy name, and share it with others, so that even when we become old, we still have a duty to perform, that is to serve the Lord, and we don't lament our situation at that time of being old and miserable. Verses 16 to 18, toward the end of his life, his eyes bulge and he is congested with mucus. He struggles to breathe, producing a rasping sound. Lying down to die, he is surrounded by lamenting friends and relatives. They cry out, "Oh, my husband, my father, my friend." In that pitiable condition, the dying man wants to speak to them, but influenced by time, he cannot express himself. In this way, a man who neglected all religious principles in maintaining his family dies a painful and pathetic death, bewildered and grieving to see his relatives crying. Verses 19 to 20, actually what it is, that in those moments we should be peaceful, we should be just accepting the pain which is coming through the body, because we should know that that is the transition time of our soul from one body to another, and we should be actually very much in remembrance of Lord, how much we can. Even if we can't, if we have been remembering him all his life, God is going to make sure that we will be able to remember him even at that crucial moment. Verses 19 to 20, at the moment of death, the attached householder is confronted by the Yamadutas, the terrible messengers of Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. Seeing them with their eyes full of wrath, he passes stool and urine in great fear. Because of his illicit pursuit of sense gratification, the Yamadutas seize him just as the police arrest a criminal. Binding him about the neck with a stout rope, they wrench him from his gross body and thrust him into a subtle covering suitable for punishment. Then they drag him to hell. So we will think that by these horrific descriptions are given, and why Mother Devahuti has been asking Lord Kapila, which is incarnate of Lord himself, about these descriptions. It is actually for the betterment of the humanity, and which includes all of us. So we should not forget what is the primary duty of this life, not just to enjoy ourselves, but to serve Lord, to keep the Lord in the center of our existence, and to pass this knowledge not just to our loved ones. We must pass this to our children as well, because they are our prime responsibility. We are supposed to give them the ultimate goal of this life. We have to educate them about this. Verses 21 to 24. Held fast by Yamaraj's agents, he trembles in terror as they scold him in harsh words. Stumbling along the road and suffering terribly, he is bitten by dogs and remembers his past sins, which have brought him to that place. Under the scorching sun, the sun, S-U-N, not the S-O-N, under the scorching sun, the criminal passes along the roads of burning sand, surrounded by forest fires. When he trips and falls, the Yamadutas whip him mercilessly across his back. Although he is afflicted by hunger and thirst, there is neither food, water, nor shelter to be found anywhere. When he falls unconscious, he is forced to rise. In great distress, he traverses many thousands of miles in matter of moments, although to him it seems much longer. He is brought before Yamaraj for judgment and is then immediately subjected to torturous punishments. Verses 25 to 29, he is thrown into a blazing fire in which his limbs burst into flames. Those who previously ate meat are forced to either eat their own flesh or be eaten by others. Serpents, scorpions, gnats, and numerous other vicious creatures surround and bite him. Even as he watches, his entrails are torn out by the hounds and vultures of hell, who eat him alive. His limbs are torn off by severed by elephants and other beasts. He is thrown down from mountain tops, drowned and locked up in caves. Those who have indulged in illicit sex are thrown into the terrible hells known as Tamishra, Andhitamishra, and Raurava. These are the terrible hells. So we have to make sure that our life is served, is spent in serving the Lord, so that we don't have to face these dreadful things, these dreadful hells. My dear mother, some people do not believe these accounts, but such sufferings can be seen even in this world. And we know that it is true. Verses 30 to 33, one who has spent his life maintaining himself and his family by sinful acts is certainly forced to endure these punishments after death along with his relatives. He enters the darkest regions of hell, and the wealth he acquired by committing violence to others becomes his fair money, leaving behind those he had maintained and for whom he must now suffer. He laments like the one who has lost everything. Thus one who is eager to support his kinsmen by sinful acts falls into the lowest regions of darkness. Devahuti and her friend sat in shocked silence for some moments, shaking her head slowly. Devahuti said, "How does the living being endure such punishment? Would he not die? Death simply means that the gross body dies," said Kapila. The subtle body of mind, intelligence, and false ego continues into another gross body. The Yamadutas covered that subtle form with a body suitable for continual torture. "Which cannot be killed?" asked Devahuti. "Yes, it is repeatedly destroyed and again revived for some more punishment." "How terrible," said Devahuti. "What happens to these poor souls after that?" Verse 34, after suffering many miserable conditions, they take birth in the lower species of the life, passing through these in a regular order. They are finally born again as humans in this world. Listen as I describe the process of birth. So this chapter 30 of Canto 3 is really painful to read and to contemplate on, But Krishna Dharma Prabhu and Chintamani Mataji have really made it small and digestible for us, and huge lesson for everyone. Next time we'll begin the chapter 31, entering the human body. That is also another eye-opener in Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you for joining. Wish you all a safe and happy weekend. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.